Welcome to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. I'm Jeff DeVeronica with my co-host Steve Bradley, on board with a special guest. He is the creator and main operator and the CEO, the main writer. He dabbles with some photography. I don't know, maybe he doesn't do photography. His name is Paul Gotham, and he created Pickin Splinters, which, God bless you, Paul, because I don't know where I'd be right now trying to look up stats without you. Welcome, Paul Gotham, to our show on our specialties hotline. Kidding aside, great job. Great job. I know online platforms are certainly more popular than ever before, and it's kind of where the business has gone. Steve and I in a business for years and years that was print and online. Well, actually started out as just print, right, Steve? But Paul, I guess, welcome to the show. And we were just talking in our pre-interview. How long has this site been up and running? And then we'll go a little deeper into that as we go forward.
The name Pickin Splinters first came around in 2009, but the work on the site goes back to 2007. I was on another site prior to that, and I transferred over some articles from 2007 and 2008 in that year, and it kind of went from there. By the way, thank you for having me on here. Happy to be here.
And Steve, we probably shouldn't I mean, can you give a little overview of what exactly I'm talking about? Like, what does Pickin Splinters do, Steve Bradley? Tell our viewers if they're not familiar with it.
Well, it's a website that's comprehensive for local sports. It goes beyond high school. You get some of the local professional teams: Amark, St. Bonaventure basketball, MCC baseball. Paul, jump in if I'm missing anything. Kind of, it looks like your contributors. Your main focus is high school, but you have people that contribute in also other areas of interest.
Definitely. I think you pretty much touched them all. Every once in a while, we'll get press releases that are sent to us, and you'll see that stuff up on the site as well. But,
Josh Wetzel going to the major leagues.
Yeah,
that was
man.
A press release. Yep. I saw
About darn time, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Josh Wetzel, because he is such a gem in our community. And I think he gets really overlooked, but it's great riding in the car on a summer night, listening to Josh Wetzel talk about the Red Wings game. He really does a great job with it. Throwing Josh a bone there, because he certainly deserves it. I think he gets overlooked in the overall picture of the community.
So how about the name? Where'd Pickin Splinters come from?
Okay, so all right, here it is. When I first started out, so a buddy of mine, Mike Kelly, I don't know if you remember Mike Kelly, who was a head coach at MCC for a few years. All right, Mike. I coached Mike when Mike was in junior high, and when he was a coach in the New York Collegiate Baseball League with the Webster Yankees, and he knew that I was doing some writing. He asked me if I'd have any interest being a beat writer for the team, and I said sure, I'll do that. And so covering the team, we're a month into the season. However, I don't know how long we were into the season, but we were down in Hornell for a game, and as can happen with baseball, we had a rain delay. The rain delay eventually led to a suspended game, but we were in the dugout for a good 45 minutes to an hour, and conversations kind of just kept going. And go home that night, I'm like, well, I don't have a game article, so I'm going to write an article, a G-rated version of the conversations that were in the dugout that night, and I'm going to call it Pickin Splinters, just because that's what we were doing that night. And next day, I showed up at the field, and the guys were, hey, Pickin Splinters, hey, Pickin Splinters. And, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. I didn't think it would be where it is right now, but that was sort of, that's the genesis of it all right there. So, and I liked it. And you know what? It's pretty representative of my playing career, so it fits that way, if you want to take it that way. So, that's I filed it away. That was 2007. I filed it away, and then a couple of years later, when I wanted to do something with the site that had a more of a generalized name, it worked. And this is all organic. There was nothing. I'm foreseeing something down the road, but I don't think this site would work if I called it the High School Report, because we cover the Amerks, we cover the Red Wings, we cover MCC. every once in a while we'll get some NCAA tournament action in there and whatnot. So I think the name works because it does give a generalized view of everything.
We're talking with Paul Gotham. He's the creator of Pickin Splinters, an online sports platform here locally that, let's be honest, it fills a void that's been left by our former employer, Steve, the Democrat and Chronicle. I mean, I remember Steve when I think it was the summer of like August of 2017, I believe it was, and we were told by Gannett that we were doing away with roundups. And a roundup, folks, is a collection of short, maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs of 10 to 12 to 14 games, all combined. And they said, we're not doing those anymore. We're like, we're going to just keep them online, they said. And they got shorter and they kind of went away. And they said, and then the Gannett said, we're going to not cover as many games. We're going to focus more on feature stories. And, being a sports writer who liked to go to games, I was like, how are we going to get to know the players and the athletes? And Paul, you've honestly, I felt in a way, and I've never said this, I think publicly, Steve and Paul, but my last fall at the Democrat and Chronicle, I spent 9 or 10 straight Friday nights on a football sideline. And I was the soccer guy. James was the football guy. And I had all these soccer coaches saying, why aren't you covering any more soccer? I'm like, well, because it's all about football to my bosses. So I have to do that. And they got it. But you are a soccer guy, no doubt about it, right, Paul Gotham? Tell us about, and you were, you're a former teacher or educator, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then said, let's be a sports writer. How did that happen?
My wife, God bless her, just said, well, so continuing on with the New York Collegiate League, I was the communications director there for a few years. And I did it for 2 years while teaching. And my wife, our youngest daughter, was entering into her final year of college. And my wife said, why don't you go do something that you like to do? And so I kind of walked the plank there and took that jump and went for it a little bit. And it went from there. Soccer is in my background. I played it, but I've always enjoyed watching, back to the Pickin Splinters and the sitting on the bench. I watched a lot of soccer with a uniform, wearing a uniform. But it's always been in my background. I've watched a lot of soccer, so I understood it. And you know what? So I played Mavericks soccer back in the 80s. So I had some pretty good teachers. Coach Beal and Coach Carl were my coaches back in the early 80s. And I learned a lot about the game from them. And that's really, it's allowed me to kind of continue to understand what goes on the field. And I've, I always think about Lennox Rawlings, who used to be the president of the USBWA, the United States Basketball Writers Association. And I remember him writing a letter several years ago and telling all the writers that we need to be stewards of the game, that we need to continue on informing readers about what the events are in the game. And you know this as well as anybody, and Steve knows as well as anybody. Each sport kind of has its own language. Each sport has its own buildup, has its own dynamics, and it is a writer's responsibility to maintain that for readers. And I've always had that in the back of my mind. And
did you go to college for journalism?
I took journalism classes. I was a creative writing major in college at Plattsburgh State, but no, I was on the newspaper for 4 semesters. I took journalism courses with Dr. Davis, who was a veteran of the New York Daily News. So he was great at Plattsburgh State. But no, I had that in my background. It was not a degree, but certainly spent enough time with the student newspaper and doing that level of work. So it's always been there. The writing has always been there.
Paul, what is your audience? What's your kind of the mission statement with Pickin Splinters?
Yeah, it's funny. We had a conversation about mission statement not too long ago. I don't know if it's a mission statement as much as it and you kind of summed it up there. I mean, I'd like to think that we play a role in the community that does allow people to see what's going on a night-to-night basis. Sometimes back to that Lennox Rawlings whole idea of being stewards of the game, sometimes that gets lost because our contribution is certainly a civic contribution, and so that can kind of, it can kind of make it look like it's a community outreach, but it is. I'd like to think, that we are maintaining the sanctity, so to speak. It's a little bit strong of a word there, of the events that are going on, whether it's on the soccer pitch, basketball court, baseball diamond, gridiron, whatever it happens to be, wherever we are.
We're talking with Paul Gotham, the founder and the editor, I guess, the boss at Pickin Splinters.
Oh boy.
Let's take a quick break. Come back. I want to talk about how you do it, how you pull it off, how you. Steve and I know the challenges, right? We were knee deep in it. But how you pull it off in the grind of journalism. So we'll take a quick break. You're watching the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show on Rock Sports Now.
Looking for a used truck? Can you find one out of 350? At BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com, you'll find one. Love SUVs? 800 are waiting for you to take one home at BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com. Add 350 pre-owned sedans, and you've got a total of 1,500 used vehicles only at BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com.
Bob Johnson's got your ride. Bob Johnson.
While we celebrate 140 years of serving our community, the kind of delicious joy that lasts a lifetime, we look forward to serving you for 140 more. With hardworking, wholehearted, passionate people who will help shape new memories for generations to come.
When it comes to workers' comp, things can change quickly.
The only way to make sure your rights are protected is to have a trusted, committed attorney on your side.
An attorney who has devoted their career to helping injured workers.
Someone to fight for the money and medical benefits you deserve.
The only person on your side
is the attorney at your side.
Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys.
The best three things here at McQuaid are definitely the sports, the brotherhood, and the service to community. I think that's a really big, important thing that McQuaid stresses, which is part of creating a better and great man. You definitely feel a connection with your fellow students here. It's being all guy school. You're able to relate to each other on a personal level, and everyone's very welcoming here with open arms and willing to be your friend.
Local McDonald's operators care about our local schools, teams, and student athletes. That's why they support the return of high school athletics in the Rochester area and around the state. See you before or after the big game at McDonald's. Welcome back, Section 5. Game on!
Protecting your home's worth pays off when you trust the experienced team at American Custom. We've all seen our homes go up in value, making home improvements a wise choice. If you think your home is worth a lot now, just wait until our team is done with it. Call American today.
Welcome back to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. Jeff DeVeronica and Steve Bradley. Excited to have one of the movers and shakers in high school sports in terms of local media. And it's somebody, Steve, if I was still doing local sports every single day as my full-time job at the Denver County Chronicle, and Steve knows this well, I'd be coming into the office every day going, did you see what Gotham had last night? Did you see it? I'd be so competitive. You would have driven me, Paul Gotham, and you actually started to, I think, to become even better and more productive than I ever was, because you keep producing more and more, and you've grown the site and grown the coverage of local high school sports in Section 5 in a way that enough that I almost thought maybe I should just quit and join with you. But my wife would have killed me. So anyway, Steve,
the feeling is more than mutual, because I gotta tell you right now that, well, first off, I tell people when they say I'm doing great stuff, I'm saying all I'm doing is what I used to read when I sat down to breakfast every morning. All I'm doing is that, and it went the same way, man. I'm going to tell you right now, it went the same way, because there were times I remember you writing the article, the goalkeeper at Churchville. I'm like, dang, man, he did a great job with that. And so that, it would come back around. I think I might have come up with some pretty good articles after that, because it gets you on your toes. So competition is a good thing, right, man?
Absolutely.
I think so. And everybody talks about when Rochester was a 2-newspaper town and how it used to be. I kind of look at Pickin Splinters a little bit differently, because I was fortunate enough that my son was a baseball player, and baseball was one of the first sports that Pickin Splinters dove into. And I know that the kids that he was friends with on his team and across Section 5, I mean, each night, you'd say when they would look at their phones, when's the roundup coming up? What game was Paul at? What game was Billy Hayen at? And, you kind of felt when Pickin Splinters came to your baseball game, it was almost like the Section 5 game of the day. And, to instill that feeling and grow that out, it was pretty cool. But Paul, going back to that, and for all the parents that have read the site, I say thank you. But going back to how you started, I know that people would come up to you and say, you're doing a great job with this. Why don't you do that? How did you grow the site and maintain the integrity of the site when there was a lot of demand placed on your shoulders?
Sure. So I back up just a little bit. So I've been covering MCC baseball since 2010, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. I started covering it. And I wasn't, again, there was no plan in place, but I didn't realize that when I was covering MCC baseball that I had a wider audience than what was appearing on the website on a daily basis. Because, at the time, from 2010 to 2015, I'm covering maybe 3 MCC doubleheaders in a week at the most. And so it's going to be a limited amount of readership. And in 2016, I was supposed to go with MCC a doubleheader in Ohio, and it was a rain out, and so I didn't have anything to do that day. And I popped in the newspaper, and who's playing today? And McQuaid was playing Livonia. You have 2 great programs. Tony Fuller was over at McQuaid, who had gone from assistant coach at MCC to head coach at McQuaid. Well, that's an easy get. It's an easy get. And I laughed to my wife, because I said, I'm going to write this article, and it's going to get, it's going to create an anthill of readership. There's not going to be that much. It's not going to be that much. And the next morning I woke up and, was very pleasantly surprised with the amount of readership, enough where I thought, this is certainly worth a second shot. And then it just kept kind of growing from there. I know a couple weeks later, I think Matt Knight from Webster Schrader all of a sudden dropped into my email all the division leaders in Monroe County, the hitting leaders and the RBI leaders, and so I ran that, and and it just kept going from there. And a couple people along the line said, I just want to be able to go somewhere and see scores from the baseball games and something that happened from that game. And so that's where the roundups started from there. And people, so, you do it for a year, and people are like, well, you're going to, do you do lacrosse? And no, I don't. And that's nothing against lacrosse. But I think if you read 2 paragraphs, if Paul Gotham wrote a lacrosse article, you get about 2 paragraphs in and you'd go to the next page. You'd look for something else, because you would know that I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's different with baseball. I got an understanding. It's different with soccer. Then in the fall, baseball season's obviously behind us, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to do something in the fall. You guys are doing a great job with football. Why would I do football? You know,
Right.
why would I do football at that time? You guys are doing a great job. So I thought I'm going to go do soccer. And so that's why that fit. Now with basketball, it didn't fit as much, but I will say this, you guys used to have varsity voices. So that I knew that was the game I was not going to cover that week. You know, if you guys were doing varsity voices, I was going to go pick another game. And I thought while it was competition, I thought at the same time, the two places kind of complemented each other, because that meant we were covering more together. You know, you guys are doing a great job with the varsity voices game. I'm over someplace else. Nobody's covering that game. And so the community in general has a wider understanding of what happened in the games last night. So that was you know, so the whole quality issue, yeah, certainly we could go out and do a surface level covering of a lot of different sports, and you would generate a wider audience, but that's never motivated me. The motivation is kind of.
Thank you to the DNC. You know, they gave you a great writer. Kevin O'Klubja has done a lot of work on your website.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna ask Steve. Let's see if I'll tee him up here. See if he gets this. When I knew I was leaving the Democratic Chronicle to come to West Veronica Schools, if Steve remembers this, I went to him and I said, well, remember what I said about Paul Gotham?
You need to hire that guy.
I said, why don't you guys hire him, right? Get him under the Democrat and Chronicle umbrella and just say, Paul, we don't want to, I don't care where you're going, what you're doing. Let's just take all your stuff and put it in the Democrat and Chronicle silo. And obviously that didn't happen for many, many reasons, but you've made such a great website, and you're doing such a great, you said, you know, none of us are getting rich being sports journalists here in Rochester, New York. But you're doing a service to the community, just like I think our show does too. So bravo for that. Steve, I don't know about you, but I wonder, how does he pull this off on a nightly basis?
Well, and the other thing I want to compliment him on too is, like, he's given a platform for a lot of young writers to have a chance to step out and get their name out. And you know, Billy Hayen is somebody that we all know that came to mind, and that really, you know, he was a talented writer all along, but it gave him a platform in the community where now he's out in Ohio and he's crushing it. And I know you've got others that have done that. And I think one of the biggest pleasures I got out of my long career was seeing somebody young that came in who had the tools and then polished it and went on to do great things. And I think, you know, that's a great thing that you've done, Paul. And maybe talk about your philosophy with, you know, younger journalists, teaching them the ropes so that they can go out and kind of find their own way.
Yeah, how much coaching do you do with these young people, Paul?
Well, first of all, being a high school English teacher has helped me a lot with that. And I also was a high school basketball coach, so that helps me a little bit with that. But first off, you mentioned Kevin O'Klubja. Kevin has been more instrumental, first of all, that he wants to accept that, but being able to say, you are going to be writing on a site with a Hall of Famer, you know, and he brings a level of standard to that. And you mentioned Billy Hayen, who's now in Sandusky. Chucky Maggio, who just, you know, he did such a great job for such a great amount of time. He has now been hired by ESPN. He's in the research department. So when you're watching ESPN certain times at night, that what's going on there in the ticker, Chucky might be contributing to that stuff, you know, and it's great. It's been great to watch him. John LeConje, who signed on when he was at the University of Rochester in his sophomore year. He was in digital media. John now works for the NBA. John spends his evenings 5 nights a week. He sits in a room with televisions and he monitors all the streams and all the coverage of the NBA. And he contributes to the writing, but he also helps monitor for basically quality control. But he still contributes to Splinters, you know, once or twice a week. Well, John also went out a couple of weeks ago, and so we now have 3 guys who are working for the NBA who are also contributing at Splinters. A couple guys who started with us in the last couple of weeks. So the whole coaching of guys, it is of writers. Actually, I shouldn't say guys, because, you know, we had Caitlin McClare a couple of years ago who, you know, it's great. Caitlin is now a an elementary school teacher at
Teacher now,
Palmyra,
yeah.
Massey. Yeah, and Caitlin did a great job for so many years with us, with doing a lot of work that was not easy to do. Caitlin did a great job with some articles that were pretty dry, and she managed to make them pretty readable. She was a great asset for the site. And you know, I think Caitlin will be the
let me butt
first
in one
one.
side. Let me say one thing about that, because we all have a sports background, right? Everybody can't be the star writer or the star player or the guy hitting and cleanup, or and just like it is with the website, or like I came up as a part-timer at the Democrat Chronicle, writing those roundups as a college student to learn how to do it. So sometimes it's not easy, right? It's not easy to do that stuff. It's not glorious. But it's learning the craft.
I'm going to drop
And
some jargon on you, Diva, though.
Here we
It
go.
teaches you those transferable skills, right? If you can handle the deadline pressure, organizing, dealing with people in stressful situations, those skills, you can go to become a teacher. You can go into so many different avenues. It's the real life experience that people are getting, that the former outfielders from the DNC got, that the people who have worked with Paul at Pickin Splinters, they become better employees, better people, just from learning how to handle themselves and that growth and maturity.
Paul, that's what we
More
used to
jargon.
call the outfielders, or what we used to call the
Yep.
young people who took the calls. But I did it. Jim Mandalero did it. John Moriello did it. Bob Chavez did it. James Johnson did it.
Craig Canale went on to be the social media director of the Buffalo Sabres, Pagula Enterprise. I mean, a ton of people have come through there over the years. A lot of stage. It's a great career in branding and marketing now. It's a long, long list.
So do you have I mean, how big is your staff? Like when we see the roundups, who's the young person writing marker instead of goal? And who's the young person saying helper instead of assist? Is that someone local? Is that one of these NBA guys? Not a fan of helper. Just tell them. I'm just gonna tell them, not a fan of helper. Can't overuse helper.
That's my word. They're getting
That's
that all from
you.
me.
Oh my
Well,
God.
but that's like a secondary reference. After I've said
Yes.
assist a couple times, I'll go with helper.
All right, Paul. But so who does the roundups? I mean, how much help do you have?
So, well, here we go with the lineup. So tomorrow night, so Tuesday night, we're talking on Monday night here, right? This is good. When's this show come out?
I'm not
When's
sure.
this? So on Tuesday night, it's going to be David Dobraz, who is a student at Canisius, currently a student at Canisius, and John Scusa, who recently graduated from Canisius, is a former Churchville Chili student.
So they're
he's
like
back
in
here.
Buffalo. They're in college. They're in Buffalo.
So John will be in Churchville when he's writing it.
Okay. But they could
Thursday
do it from
night.
Buffalo, right? They could do it from
You
Buffalo.
could do it. You could do it from Timbuktu. Right?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean-
beautiful. It's a beautiful thing of digital media. Yeah.
Yeah, you could do it from because people are sending us emails, people are sending us direct messages, people are sending us text messages, and that's how we do it. That's how we kind of gather it all. The certainly the Section 5 soccer sites help us, but we build off from there. But
I
that's
also like to
kind of
think
the start.
I may have provoked you to do a little more tweeting video and stuff. I used to do a lot of that. So I may have maybe nudged you to do a little more of that.
So
Yes,
Paul,
you and Big Joe nudged me because Joe, we used to use the footage that I had on the high school sports beat. So that's how we got going with that a little bit. But well, and here's the thing: upgrading the phone helped in that whole process too.
Yes.
Because the iPhone, the videos on the iPhone 4 weren't really that good. Let's be straight.
Well, I went to a conference this summer, and the takeaway from one of the sessions was that all these companies think that branding is what the company thinks it is, but the argument is branding is really what your public and your stakeholders think you are. So as in your position at Pickin Splinters, what do you want the public perception? What do you want your brand to be?
I like that people perceive us as hardworking, that we don't take the easy way out. I mean, I think those roundups. I mean, John LeConte, when he's writing those roundups, if you go back and look at some of his Friday night high school basketball roundups, I can't believe how much time and effort he puts into it. And there's no easy way out on it. There aren't any shortcuts, and I hope that the public perception is that these writers, these guys, know sports and are conveying it in a fashion that a high school English teacher would approve of it.
And we're giving kids a chance to celebrate. I mean, no one's gonna probably clip out the article and put it on the fridge the way they used to, but there's a void there now, and people want to see parents want to see their kids being celebrated and showcased, and that's what our show's about. That's what your website's about. And it's a way to let people, know who's good still and who's not.
Yeah.
So it's really great. I mean, we could talk all night, guys. It's been a great interview. Paul, I want to get you back on as we head toward the sectional poll here.
Definitely.
Boys and girls
Definitely.
soccer. And maybe one day when I stop doing the show, I'd love to do a little writing for the site. So
yes.
but anyway, Steve, anything else you'd like to add from Mr. Gotham?
Just thank you for your time, and I think, Paul, thanks for what you brought to the community, and making the day for so many parents, so many athletes, and lighting a fire under some journalists too, to try and make all of us better.
Happy to be those roles, man. Thank you so much. I'm really happy that you guys asked me. Thank you for having me on.
Long time overdue, Paul. That's Paul Gotham, folks, from Pickin Splinters. Make sure you check it out. I probably should say it just so you can hear it. PickinSplinters.com. That's PICKIN Splinters.com. One of the most unique URLs in the history of URLs. So for Steve Bradley and our producer, Joe Broughton, for Paul Gotham, my name's Chef D. Veronica. Thanks for watching us right here on the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show.